I still remember the sound my father's handcuffs made when they clicked shut around his wrists. Click, click. The metallic echo bounced off the walls of the country club's main hall, silencing 200 people mid-conversation. His face turned the colour of a ripe plum, veins bulging at his temples as he lunged toward me one last time. The sheriff stepped between us, one hand on his taser, and I didn't flinch. Not anymore. Behind him, the projector screen still glowed with the frozen image of my father's hand connecting with my 9-year-old daughter's face, her small body spinning from the impact. The blood on her lip looked almost black in the dashcam footage. If you're watching this because you've ever felt powerless in your own family, stay with me. What happened next changed everything. But before I tell you how I brought down a tyrant, I need you to do something. Hit that like button if you believe justice matters. Subscribe because this story has layers you won't believe. And comment below if you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting someone you love. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Now let me take you back to where it all started. 3 weeks before that night at the country club, I was a different person. My name is Sarah Mitchell, single mother, marketing director at Henderson & Associates, one of those mid-sized firms where you kill yourself for clients who barely remember your name. I had just closed the Riverside Development account, a project that consumed 6 months of 16-hour days, missed school plays and dinners microwaved at midnight. The commission check that hit my account that Friday was more money than I had seen at once in my entire life, $42,000. I sat in my car in the parking garage, staring at the number on my phone screen. Emma's face immediately popped into my mind. My daughter. 9 years old, all elbows and wild curly hair with eyes that saw too much for her age. She had been asking about a bike for months, not just any bike. The Canyon Strive CF9, a mountain bike she'd seen at Morrison's bike shop downtown. Metallic blue with neon yellow accents. Full suspension hydraulic disc brakes, the kind of machine that cost more than my first car. $750. For years I would have talked myself out of it. Would have calculated how many groceries that money could buy, how many months of Emma's college fund it represented. But something shifted in me that day. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was realizing that Emma had watched me sacrifice everything, including time with her, for a paycheck. Maybe I just wanted to see her smile the way other kids smiled when their fathers took them to Disneyland or bought them ponies. I drove straight to Morrison's. The owner, Greg, recognized me from the 3 times Emma had dragged me in to look at that bike. He didn't even seem surprised when I said I would take it. Emma's scream when I wheeled it into our apartment that evening is a sound I will carry to my grave. Pure, unfiltered joy. She literally jumped up and down her hands, covering her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Mum, is this real? Can I really keep it? I knelt down to her level, my hands on her shoulders. Baby, you deserve this. You deserve everything good in this world. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. She rode it in circles around our apartment complex parking lot until the sun set, her laughter echoing off the buildings. Neighbours came out to watch. Mrs. Chen from 3B even brought her lemonade. It was perfect. That night, lying in bed, Emma asked if we could take the bike to show Grandpa Frank. It was almost 4th of July weekend, and we usually made the drive to my parents' house in Millbrook for the annual barbecue. My stomach clenched at the suggestion, but Emma's eyes were so bright with excitement. Are you sure you want to? I asked carefully. You know how Grandpa can be. Emma nodded, innocent and trusting. But this is different, Mom. He'll be so impressed. And I want to show Mason too. Mason, my sister Cara's 12-year-old son, a kid who had never heard the word no in his life, who broke other children's toys for fun and threw tantrums at restaurants when the ice cream flavour he wanted was out of stock. But Emma, sweet Emma, still thought the best of people. I should have said no. God, I should have said no. The drive to Millbrook took 90 minutes. We loaded the bike into the back of my Honda Civic, Emma chattering the whole way about tricks she wanted to learn. The sky was that perfect summer blue, cloudless and infinite. We pulled up to my father's house just after noon. Frank Donovan's property sat on 2 acres at the end of a cul-de-sac. Manicured lawn, white picket fence, American flag hanging from the porch. The driveway was already packed with cars. My father always threw the biggest 4th of July party in the neighbourhood. Retired police chief pillar of the community, the man everyone called when they needed someone to organise the Veterans Parade or speak at the high school graduation. If only they knew what he was like behind closed doors. Emma and I unloaded the bike. She was practically vibrating with excitement as we wheeled it up the driveway. The backyard was full of people. My father stood by the grill wearing his world's best grandpa apron, flipping burgers for the Hendersons and the Martins and half a dozen other families. He saw us coming and his smile got wider. "There's my girls," he called out, waving a spatula. Always the showman. My mother appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray of corn on the cob. She was smaller than I remembered, like she was shrinking into herself year by year. Her eyes flicked to the bike, then to my father, then back to me. I saw the worry flash across her face. "Sarah, honey, what a lovely surprise," she said, but her voice was thin. Cara emerged from the house next, her phone in one hand, designer sunglasses perched on her head, despite the fact that we were standing in the shade. She was wearing white linen pants that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, never mind that she had not held a job in 5 years. My parents supported her entirely, paid her rent, her car insurance, her credit card bills. "Well, well," Cara said, looking at the bike. "Someone's trying to be Mother of the Year." I ignored her. Emma was already walking the bike toward the cluster of kids playing near the swing set. Mason was there, hunched over a Nintendo Switch, his face red and sweaty. "Mason, look what Aunt Sarah got Emma," one of the neighbour kids called out. Mason's head snapped up, his eyes locked on the bike, and I saw it immediately. That look, the one he got right before he threw a tantrum in the toy store or destroyed another kid's Lego creation. Want mixed with entitlement, mixed with rage. He stood up, dropping the Switch in the grass. "Whoa, that's sick. Let me try it." Emma hesitated. Maybe later, I just got it and I'm still learning how to use all the gears." "Come on," Mason said, reaching for the handlebars. "Don't be selfish." Emma pulled the bike back. "I'm sorry, Mason. Maybe after lunch I just don't want anything to happen to it." It was a perfectly reasonable boundary, a 9-year-old protecting something precious. But Mason didn't do boundaries. His face twisted into a snarl. "You're such a baby! You're just like your mum, stuck up and mean." He lunged forward and grabbed the handlebars, trying to rip the bike away from Emma. She held on tight, and they did this horrible tug-of-war dance for 3 seconds before Mason shoved her, hard. Emma went sprawling backward onto the grass, scraping her elbow on a rock. She cried out more from shock than pain. I was moving before I even realised it, crossing the yard in long strides. But my father was faster. Frank Donovan appeared like a thunderstorm, his heavy boots thudding across the lawn. For one brief stupid moment, I thought he was going to scold Mason, help Emma up, be the grandfather he pretended to be for the neighbours. Instead, he grabbed Emma by the arm and hauled her to her feet. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked at her. Emma's eyes went wide with shock and fear. "Dad let go of her," I said, my voice low and dangerous. He ignored me completely, still glaring at Emma. "You think you're better than your cousin? You think you can come into this house and wave your expensive toys around while Mason has nothing?" "Mason has everything," I snapped. "And that bike belongs to Emma. She doesn't have to share it if she doesn't want to." My father's face went purple. The neighbours were starting to notice the commotion. I saw Mrs. Henderson put down her plate, saw Mr. Martin take a step closer. And that's when my father did it. That's when he made the choice that destroyed everything. He raised his hand and slapped Emma across the face. Not a tap, not a warning swat. A full-on open-palmed hit that snapped her head to the side and split her lip. Blood bloomed immediately bright red against her pale skin. Emma stumbled her legs going out from under her and she hit the ground hard. The entire backyard went silent. I heard screaming. It took me 3 full seconds to realise the screaming was coming from me. I launched myself at my father, ready to claw his eyes out. But Cara and my mother materialised on either side of me, grabbing my arms. "Stop it, Sarah, you're making a scene," Cara hissed. "He just hit my daughter." I was trying to shake them off, trying to get to Emma, who was curled on the ground, sobbing. My father bent down, picked up the bike and wheeled it over to Mason. "There you go, buddy. It's yours now. Your cousin needs to learn some manners." Mason's eyes were huge. Even he looked shocked. But he took the bike. I finally wrenched free from Cara and my mother and dropped to my knees beside Emma. Her face was already swelling, her lip bleeding freely. I gathered her into my arms and she buried her face in my shoulder, her whole body shaking. "We're leaving," I said. Good riddance, my father said. Then louder for the benefit of the neighbours who were now openly staring. That's what happens when you raise a kid without a father. No discipline, no respect. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. Don't even think about it, my father said, his voice dropping to that deadly quiet tone I knew too well. You call 911 and I'll tell them you attacked me. I've got 30 years of credibility with the Millbrook PD. You've got a temper and a history of being difficult. Who do you think they'll believe? I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had controlled me my whole life through fear and manipulation. This man who convinced me I was never good enough, never grateful enough, never obedient enough. This man who had just assaulted my child and was threatening me with his connections. And something inside me went cold, not scared, not hurt, cold and clear and absolutely certain. I picked Emma up. She wrapped her legs around my waist and her arms around my neck. I carried her out of that backyard, past the gawking neighbours, past my mother who was crying silently, past Cara who was already trying to herd everyone back to the food table. I strapped Emma into her car seat. Her tears had slowed, but she was making these small hiccuping sounds that broke my heart. I looked in the rearview mirror at my father's house at Mason, already riding Emma's bike in circles on the driveway, and I made a promise. They just declared war, I whispered, and they have no idea who they're fighting. I didn't drive home. Instead, I drove to Millbrook Urgent Care, 3 blocks from my father's house. Emma was confused, but I explained calmly that we needed to get her checked out, make sure she was okay. The nurse who took us back took one look at Emma's face and her eyes went hard. What happened, sweetheart? She asked Emma gently. Emma looked at me. I nodded. You can tell her the truth. My grandpa hit me, Emma said in a small voice, because I wouldn't let Mason take my bike. The nurse's jaw tightened. She took photographs. Close-ups of Emma's split lip, the bruise already forming on her cheek, the scrape on her elbow. She measured the swelling. She documented everything in meticulous detail. When she handed me the medical report 40 minutes later, it was thorough and damning. Laceration of lower lip, 2 centimetres. Contusion on left cheek, 3 centimetres in diameter. Abrasion on right elbow. Patient reports being struck in the face by grandfather. I thanked her and drove to the parking lot of a coffee shop. Emma fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from crying. I sat in the driver's seat and called Miller. James Miller had been my colleague at Henderson & Associates for 6 years before he left to start his own practice specialising in family law. We had worked late nights together, shared Chinese takeout over contract negotiations, complained about impossible clients. He was the closest thing I had to a best friend. Sarah, he answered on the second ring. What's wrong? I told him everything. Every word was like swallowing glass, but I got through it. When I finished, there was a long silence. Do you want to press charges? Miller asked quietly. I want to destroy him, I said. But I'm told he owns half the police force in Millbrook. Criminal charges can take time and they're not guaranteed, Miller said. But Sarah, if you want to hit him where it really hurts, we go after his reputation and his wallet. Civil suit, assault and battery on a minor, theft of property, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We make this as public and as expensive as possible. How public are we talking? How badly do you want to win? I looked at Emma sleeping in the rearview mirror at the bandage on her lip. I want him to lose everything. Then let's start gathering ammunition, Miller said. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment over and over. The sound of the slap, Emma's cry, the bike being handed to Mason like a trophy. Around 2 a.m, I started scrolling through Facebook on my phone, and that's when I found it. Cara had posted a listing on Facebook Marketplace at 9:30 that evening. Practically new Canyons Drive mountain bike. Barely used, incredible condition, selling for $400, OBO need cash ASAP. My blood turned to ice. She was selling Emma's bike, not even keeping it for Mason, just converting it to cash she could spend on herself. I screenshotted the listing, then I kept scrolling. Mason's TikTok account was public, of course, because Cara never bothered with privacy settings. His latest video, posted just an hour ago, showed him doing wheelies on Emma's bike in my parents' driveway. The caption read, "Spoiled cousin got told El Mayu," with a bunch of laughing emojis. In the video, he deliberately crashed the bike into the garage door, left a dent in the frame, and laughed about it. I screenshotted that too. I sat there in the dark, my phone glowing in my hand, and I felt something shift. Not anger anymore. Anger was too hot, too chaotic. This was strategy. This was war. I opened my messages and texted Kara. Hey sis, I know Dad was really upset today and I feel terrible about the whole situation. I don't want to cause more problems. That bike was supposed to be Emma's, but if Dad wants Mason to have it, I understand. I just need the original receipt and serial number to cancel the warranty registration. Can you send me a photo of the paperwork? It should be in the box. I knew Kara well enough to predict what would happen next. She was not smart enough to see a trap, and she was arrogant enough to gloat. Her reply came 15 minutes later. LOL, finally showing some sense. Dad already gave the bike to Mason, and honestly, Emma didn't deserve it anyway. I'm selling it tomorrow to pay for Mason's summer camp. Don't even think about coming back here asking for it. You're not welcome anymore. Screenshot saved, backed up to the cloud. In the morning, I called Miller again. I have written admission of theft and intent to sell stolen property. What's next? Now we plan the finale, Miller said. When does your father care most about his image? I thought about it. My father's entire identity was wrapped up in being respected, being feared, being the man everyone looked up to, and right now he was in the middle of a campaign. For the past 3 months, my father had been running for president of the Millbrook Community Association, a position that came with a small salary but enormous social clout. The election was in 2 weeks, scheduled to take place at the annual Community Association Gala at the Millbrook Country Club. It was the social event of the summer. 200 people, all the local business owners and civic leaders, a catered dinner awards ceremony, the whole 9 yards. My father had been campaigning for months, giving speeches about family values and community service, and protecting Millbrook's traditions. The Community Association Gala, I told Miller. 2 weeks from now, that's his stage. Then that's where we take him down, Miller said. But Sarah, are you sure this is going to get ugly? Your whole family is going to turn on you. I thought about Emma's split lip. I thought about a lifetime of my father's control, his violence disguised as discipline, his favouritism of Kara, his constant message that I was never enough. They already turned on me when they let him hit my daughter, I said. I'm just making it official. The next 13 days were a blur of preparation. Miller filed a civil lawsuit and requested an emergency restraining order. The restraining order was granted within 72 hours, which meant my father was legally prohibited from coming within 100 feet of Emma or me. The sheriff who served the order was not from Millbrook. Miller had made sure of that. He was from the county seat, a man named Rodriguez, who had a reputation for not caring about small-town politics. According to Miller, Rodriguez took one look at the medical photos of Emma and told my father that if he violated the order even once, he would personally make sure Frank Donovan spent a night in county lockup. My father tried to call me 17 times that day. I blocked his number. Kara called next, screaming about how I was tearing the family apart. I let her rant for 30 seconds, then said, "You sold my daughter's bike and admitted it in writing. See you in court," and hung up. My mother called last. She was crying. "Sarah, please, can't we just talk about this? Your father didn't mean to hurt Emma. He just has a temper. You know how he is." "Yes, Mum," I said quietly. "I know exactly how he is. That's why I'm doing this. You're going to destroy this family." He destroyed it the second he put his hands on my daughter. I'm just making sure everyone else sees it too. She hung up without saying goodbye. Miller and I worked late into the nights. We prepared a presentation, not a PowerPoint, something better. We compiled the dashcam footage from my car. I had forgotten about it until Miller asked if I had any video evidence. My Honda had a camera that automatically recorded whenever the car was on. I had parked facing the backyard that day. The footage was grainy but clear enough. You could see my father grab Emma. You could see him hit her. You could see her fall. You could see him take the bike and give it to Mason. Every second of it. We added screenshots of Kara's Facebook Marketplace listing. Screenshots of her text messages admitting to selling the bike. Screenshots of Mason's TikTok video destroying it. We put it all together in a 10-minute presentation that told the whole story without me having to say a word. The night of the gala arrived. I wore a black dress, simple and professional, the kind I wore to client presentations. Emma stayed with Mrs. Chen, who had been horrified when I told her what happened, and volunteered immediately to help. Miller met me in the country club parking lot. He was wearing a suit, and standing next to him was Sheriff Rodriguez and another officer I did not recognize. "You ready?" Miller asked. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my sides. Yes. The country club's main ballroom was packed. Round tables with white tablecloths, a stage at the front, a projector screen set up for the evening's presentations. My father was at the centre table, surrounded by his cronies from the Veterans Association and the Town Council. He was holding court, laughing at someone's joke, completely at ease. He saw me walk in and his face went white, then red. He started to stand, but Rodriguez stepped forward, one hand resting visibly on his belt near his taser. "Mr. Donovan, I'd advise you to stay seated," Rodriguez said calmly. "There's a restraining order in effect." The people at my father's table looked confused. Whispers started rippling outward. I walked up to the stage. The association president, a woman named Dorothy Chen, Mrs. Chen's sister-in-law, as it turned out, stepped aside. Miller had called her 2 days ago and explained what we needed. She had agreed immediately. I plugged my laptop into the projector. "Good evening, everyone," I said into the microphone. My voice only shook a little. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. Frank Donovan is my father. Before you vote for him tonight, there's something you need to see." My father stood up. "You don't have permission to—" "Sit down, Mr. Donovan," Rodriguez said. "It was not a request." I clicked play. The dashcam footage filled the screen. No sound, but you didn't need sound. You could see everything. The argument, Mason pushing Emma, my father grabbing her, the slap, the way her small body crumpled, the bike being handed over like a reward. Someone gasped, then someone else. I heard chairs scraping as people stood to see better. I let the video play all the way through. Then I put up the screenshots. Kara's marketplace listing. Her text messages. Mason's TikTok video. "This happened 13 days ago," I said. "My father assaulted my 9-year-old daughter because she wouldn't let her cousin take the bike I bought her. Then my sister stole the bike and tried to sell it for cash. When I attempted to report it to the Millbrook police, my father threatened me using his connections to intimidate me into silence." The room was dead silent now. I could see Mrs. Henderson covering her mouth with her hand. Mr. Martin looked like he was going to be sick. "I'm not here to ask for sympathy," I continued. "I'm here because you deserve to know who Frank Donovan really is before you give him power over this community. A man who hits children, a man who steals from his own family, a man who uses his position to escape consequences." I stepped back from the microphone. Miller stepped forward. "My name is James Miller, and I'm Ms. Mitchell's attorney," he said. "We have filed civil charges against Frank Donovan for assault and battery on a minor theft and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We have also filed charges against Kara Donovan for receipt of stolen property and fraud. The County District Attorney's Office has been provided with all of this evidence and is currently reviewing it for potential criminal charges." He held up a folder. "Mr. Donovan, you've been served." Rodriguez walked over and handed the papers directly to my father, who looked like he had been turned to stone. Then my father did exactly what I knew he would do. He lost control. He shoved back from the table and started toward the stage, his face purple with rage, his fists clenched. "You ungrateful little bitch. After everything I've done for you, I'll—" Rodriguez and the other officer were on him in seconds. They grabbed his arms, spun him around, and Rodriguez said very clearly, very calmly, "Mr. Donovan, you are violating a restraining order and making threats in the presence of law enforcement. You're under arrest." The handcuffs clicked shut. My father thrashed, trying to pull away, which only made it worse. Rodriguez added resisting arrest to the charges. The room exploded in chaos. People were shouting questions. Phones were out recording everything Dorothy Chen was trying to restore order. Kara appeared from somewhere screaming that I was a liar, that I had always been jealous of her, that I was tearing the family apart over an accident. Miller calmly turned to her. "Ms. Donovan, we also have a civil suit filed against you. You've been served as well." He handed her a second folder. Kara's face went from red to white. "I didn't steal anything. Dad gave me that bike." "Your text messages say otherwise," Miller said pleasantly. "You admitted to selling property that didn't belong to you, with full knowledge that it was taken from the rightful owner. That's textbook theft." Mason was crying in the corner, huge, heaving sobs, suddenly understanding that his actions had consequences. My mother stood frozen at the table, staring at nothing. Rodriguez walked my father out in handcuffs past 200 people who had come to celebrate him. The flash of camera phones followed him all the way to the door. I stood on that stage, and I didn't cry, I didn't smile, I just watched. Dorothy Chen eventually got everyone calmed down enough to announce that the election was postponed indefinitely. The gala ended early. People filed out in small groups, whispering. Miller drove me home. We didn't talk much. When he pulled up outside my apartment, he finally said, "You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, right? They're going to come after you with everything they have." "Let them," I said. "I have the truth, and I have something they never gave me: boundaries." The fallout was exactly as ugly as Miller predicted. My father was released on bail the next morning. The assault charge was reduced to a misdemeanor because he had no prior record. The theft charges against him and Cara were harder to dismiss because we had written evidence. The local newspaper ran the story, then the county paper picked it up. Then a regional news station did a segment about abuse of power in small-town politics. My father's face was everywhere and not in the way he wanted. The bike was recovered from Cara's garage. It was damaged, scratched the frame, slightly bent from Mason's TikTok stunt. The police returned it to me with an incident report. I looked at it sitting in my living room and I felt nothing. It wasn't Emma's bike anymore. It was evidence, a symbol of everything wrong with my family. The civil suit moved forward. My father's lawyer tried to settle quietly, offering to pay for the bike and Emma's medical bills if I dropped the whole thing. Miller called me. "They're offering $5,000. Do you want to take it?" "No," I said. "We go to trial. I want a jury to hear this." We didn't end up needing a trial. 2 weeks before the court date, my father's lawyer came back with a new offer. Full reimbursement for the bike triple damages, all medical expenses, payment for Emma's therapy, and a written apology to be read in open court. The total came to $28,000. "He's desperate," Miller explained. "The DA is still deciding whether to pursue criminal charges, and if this goes to trial and a jury awards you damages, it strengthens the DA's case. He wants to make this go away." "I want the apology in writing," I said, "and I want him to admit what he did." Miller negotiated for 3 more days. In the end, my father signed a settlement agreement that included a detailed admission of facts. He struck Emma. He took the bike without permission. He threatened me to avoid consequences. It was all there in legal language signed by Frank Donovan himself. The apology was read in court by his lawyer because my father refused to show up. Even then, even in defeat, he couldn't face me. The money hit my account a week later. I took Emma back to Morrison's bike shop. Greg saw us coming and smiled. "I heard what happened," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said. "We're here to order a new bike, but this time we're doing it right." Emma and I spent 2 hours going through the catalogue. We picked out a custom-build, top-of-the-line everything in a colour Emma chose herself, sunset orange with purple accents. "Like a sky right before dark," she said, "when everything changes." It cost $1,200. I didn't hesitate. When the bike was ready 3 weeks later, I drove Emma to the coast. We parked at a beach access point and rode along the paved trail that ran parallel to the ocean. The wind whipped Emma's hair back, and I could hear her laughing that same pure sound from the first time I brought home the blue bike. But this time it was different. This time she knew that no one could take it from her. This time she understood that her mother would fight for her. This time she had seen that standing up to bullies, even when they're family, even when they're powerful, was possible. We stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the water. Emma leaned her new bike against the railing and sat down on a bench. I sat next to her. "Mum," she said, "are we ever going to see Grandpa again?" I had been dreading this question. "I don't know, baby. Maybe someday if he changes. But right now, no. He hurt you, and he didn't think he did anything wrong. Until he understands that what he did was not okay, we can't be around him." Emma was quiet for a minute, watching the waves. Then she said, "I'm glad you didn't let him get away with it." I pulled her close. "I will never let anyone hurt you and get away with it. Ever." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, a text from Cara. "Mum is in the hospital, heart problems. She's asking for you." I stared at the message for a long moment. Miller had warned me this might happen, the guilt trip, the emergency that required me to forgive and forget. I thought about my mother who had stood by and watched my father abuse me my whole childhood, who had made excuses, who had begged me not to press charges because it would embarrass the family. I thought about Emma, who was watching me right now, learning what self-respect looked like. I opened the message thread with Cara and typed one word, block. Then I deleted the conversation. Emma was still looking at me. "Was that Grandma?" "It was your aunt," I said. "She wants something from me that I can't give her anymore." "What's that?" "Permission to pretend none of this ever happened." We rode our bikes until sunset, the sky turning exactly the colour of Emma's new frame. Orange bleeding into purple, bleeding into deep blue, everything changing. Freedom is not just doing what you want. Freedom is having the strength to make sure no one can hurt you ever again. It is knowing your worth and protecting it with everything you have. It is teaching your daughter that she deserves respect, safety, and justice, and then showing her what it looks like to fight for those things. I lost my family when I stood up to my father, but I gained something more valuable myself, and Emma gained a mother who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. Some people will tell you that family is everything, that you should forgive, that blood is thicker than water. But the full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The people you choose, the family, you build, the boundaries you set, those are sacred. Those are worth fighting for. I chose Emma, I chose myself, and I would make that choice again every single day for the rest of my life. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting what matters most? Have you ever had to stand up to someone everyone else is afraid of? Drop a comment and tell me your story. And if this resonated with you, if you believe that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say, no, hit that like button, subscribe, because I will keep sharing stories about finding strength when everything feels impossible. Your story matters, your boundaries matter, you matter. And remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure the lesson is one you are proud of.